So as you all know, this shiur is usually dedicated to a sugya of the weekly parsha or in Yonah D'Yoyma. And in the past few months, in this entire era, in this entire tkufa, many times I apologized or explained that in Yonah D'Yoyma is also COVID-19, the corona pandemic. And today we start off with Parshas Shavua, but I also will address the question that I was asked by many Rabbonim in Eretz Yisrael and in America, and many lay people, and Amchu Beis Yisrael. And I've been asked this question since it became known that we do have a vaccine. So one gets the vaccine, does he need to say Shehechiyanu or Hatoiv HaMeitiv? So last week we spoke about the vaccine, and I made my opinion very clear that people should vaccinate. And I said that when my time will come, when I will be summoned or invited, I will take the vaccine. So Baruch Hashem, yesterday I took the vaccine. I'm not a performer, so I did not ask them to make a video clip. People will need to trust me and believe me. No videos. But yesterday, I took the vaccine, Baruch Hashem. So by the legal standards, I'm an old man, and that's why I got the vaccine. I strive all my life to be an old man also by Chazal's definition, the way Chazal are mefarish define v'hodartu pnei zokein. I hope to be an old man, a zokein, according to Chazal, but I seem to be considered an old man according to legal standards. So yesterday I got the vaccine, and Baruch Hashem, I feel great. I have slight pain in my left arm, but that is to be expected by every vaccine. Very slight pain. Doesn't cause me any bittul Torah, Baruch Hashem, and besides that, I feel great. So in another 20 days, I need to get the second part of the vaccine, and I hope and daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I should be well. And I wish everyone, I really hope that people will take the vaccine. I did. It is definitely something I think is the right thing to do. But let me wish everyone, those that will vaccinate and those that will not, they should all know good health and refuas and yeshuas and simcha and nachas. And none of us should know pain and suffering, chas v'sholom. So how does the birchas Shehechiyanu and the vaccine come into the Vachadik Parsha, this week's Parsha? The story of Yosef and Yaakov and Yosef's brothers this week comes to a dramatic climax. When Yosef suddenly reveals his true identity to his brothers, and when Yosef meets Yaakov Avinu. V'yese Yosef es merkavta v'yal lekrayas Aviv Yisrael Aviv Goishno v'yero ela v'yipal al tzavarav v'yev al tzavarav oid. Rashi brings Yaakov Avinu koro kriya shema. Did he say birchas Shehechiyanu? We don't find it in Chazal. Did Yosef say birchas Shehechiyanu? So in Siman Reish Chofei in Shulchan Aruch, and it's a sugya Masechet Brochas Haroyach Avera Liyachas Shloshim Yom, says Shehechiyanu. After 12 months, he says Machaya Mesim. Yaakov Avinu saw Yosef after 22 years. 22 years in which he was mourning. V'yemo'en lehinochem. He was inconsolable. No one could console him and be menachem. 22 years of mourning. We could just try to imagine how immense, how unbelievable Yaakov's simcha was. And Yosef as well. Yosef as well. We do not find that they made the Shehechiyanu. Maybe they did. The fact that Chazal don't say it doesn't mean they didn't. And generally, I always apologize and explain, We don't have any kashas on Masa Yavoi, so all the questions we ask about Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, the Shvatim are only a springboard, only a platform to discuss sugyas. So what I want to discuss today is Birchas Shehechiyanu in general. So in Birchas Shehechiyanu we find an Eruv in Daf Memo Mid Beis that there are Shnei Dinim, two different Dinim and halachas in Birchas Shehechiyanu. Birchas Shehechiyanu on Sholosh Regolim, an Yomim Tovim, and on Mitzvos Shabois Mizman Lezman, that Birchas Shehechiyanu is a choiva. Birchas Shehechiyanu. And Peres Chadoshim, Kelem Chadoshim, new fruits that you eat once a year, new garments, new begodim, is a reshus. Ben kach or ben kach. There's a most fundamental question that has been bothering me for decades, but I also have an answer for decades, but most people don't think of it. We have two brachas that are min haTorah. Berachas Hamazon Lekuli Alma. You got a bench when you eat bread, and that is a pasuk. Mikro Mole Diber Akosef. V'ochalto v'savoto v'varachto Hashem Elokecha l'oretz hatoeva asher natan lach. Berachas HaTorah, according to most Rishonim, is Dioraisa. Not all of them. But that is also the opinion of the Bis Yosef and Sememem Zayin. Berachas HaTorah Dioraisa. And Chazal ask, how do we know Birchas HaTorah? Brachas Chof Aleph Amud Aleph. Ki shemesh emekro hovo goydel lelokeinu. There are three different categories of brachas, three different fundamental categories, three types of brachas. Birchas Haneinen, Birchas HaMitzvah, Birchas HaShevach. So regarding Birchas Hamazon, it's a posuk. Regarding Birchas HaTorah, it's a sugya. Minolan, Brachas Chof Aleph Amud Aleph. Birchas Haneinen, a big sugya, brachas, lamed hey amud aleph, the beginning of Ketzad Mevorchim. First, Chazal want to bring psukim, from which we learn and derive that we're supposed to make a bracha on hanos, on achila v'shtia, on eating or drinking. The conclusion of the sugya is svori. How do we know Birchas HaMitzvah? Once again, sugyas. Safri. Parshas Kisavoi. And the Sifri says, Vidyu Maisris, Lo shuchachti melevorechacha. And the Rishonim explain that means Birchas HaMitzvahs, and Afroshas Tumas HaMaisis. The Yerushalmi has a different source, Brochas Mem Aleph Amud Beis. Luchoi so even HaTorah v'Mitzvah iskish mitzvah l'Torah kishem shemavorach al Torah kach mavorach al mitzvah. So each of these brachas has a source, either in Torah's Moshe, and the Gemara deals with the question: how do we know, and what is the rationale of these brachas? All of them besides Birchas HaShevach, and that's a huge question. Why? Birchas HaShevach is a very big category. Shehechiyanu, HaToiva HaMeitev are just one or two of the many Birchas HaShevach. Nowhere do we find in Shas, neither in Bavli nor in Yerushalmi, Menolan. Why? How do we know? Halaydavu. So my Talmidim know, in my opinion, when we have a huge question like this one, it's not enough to give a teretz. We need to explain why it's not a question. If we have a teretz, then we would expect the Rishonim to ask the question and give the answer. Not only don't we find in Bavli and Yerushalmi a sugya discussing how do we know about Birchas HaShevach, we also don't find any of the Rishonim that ask this question. And that is why I think the teretz has to be a very simple one. So the Rambam, in an amazing line, the beginning of Hilchas Brochas. Hilchas Brochas, Perek Aleph, is clearly structured. First halacha in Hilchas Brochas, Perek Aleph halacha Aleph, the Rambam deals with Birchas Hamazon, and the Rambam says it's a pasuk. Halacha Beis, Birchas Haneinen, which are most closely related to Birchas Hamazon. Berchas Hamazon is a brocha achroina pas. The Rambam says, Kishem shetzorech levorach al Hamazon, kach berchas hanahenen. Anything you eat, anything you drink, before and after, brocha rishona, brocha achroina. Halacha Gimel, the Rambam writes, Kishem shemavorach al hanoah, kach mavorach al kol mitzvah v'mitzvah, and that is berchas ha-mitzvah. And the Rambam says, Brochos rabois tiknu chachomim derech shevach v'oidoya v'bakosha kedei lizkoir es haboirei tomid. Kedei lizkoir es haboirei tomid. And then in Halacha Daled, the Rambam says, starting to specify what are those brochos. Brochos shetiknu chachomim derech shevach v'oidoya v'tefillah kedei lizkor es haboirei uliyira oisoi. The rationale and the objective of Birchas HaShevach V'Oidoya and Bakosha are Lizkoir es haboirei tomid uliyira oisoi. Rabbi Avram ben Rambam Sefer HaMaspek La'ovdei Hashem. Rabbeinu Menoach on the spot, the beginning of Hilchos Brochos, right? What does the Rambam mean, Birchas Oidoya? Al derech Shevach Oidoya ve'Bakosha. Birchas Tefillah and Birchas Kriyas Shema. No. Also Birchas Tefillah and Kriyas Shema, but not only. Bakosha is Birchos Tefillah. Primarily the Brochos Hamtzoyos of the Shemoneh Esrei. Bakoshas Tzrochim. Yes, the first three Brochos are Shevach. Birchas Kriyas Shema are Shevach. But there are many more, including Shehechiyanu, Toiv HaMeitiv, Birchas HaGoyma, Birchas HaShachar. So let me explain. The Rambam writes, Birchas HaNehena, Birchas HaMitzvah, Birchas HaShevach. But the Rambam divides Birchas HaShevach, Shevach, Oidoya, v'Tefillah. Abu Darham makes Tefillah a separate category. It's just a question of terminology, of categorization. But there's not really a machlokes. So Birchas HaShevach are the first three brochas of Shemoneh Esrei and many others. Oisa Masa Bereishis, Koichui Vigvorose Moliyolam, in which we sing the praise of HaKadosh Baruch Hu on the amazing Bria. Birchas HaIdoya, giving thanks and gratitude for personal chasodim. Birchas HaGoimel, when a person is salvaged from danger, when his life was in danger and he survived. Many other brochas which are Birchas HaIdoya. Shehechiyanu. So we have Shevach, we have Idoya. Birchas HaTefillah are Bakoshas Tzrochim. Shemoneh Esrei. But not only Shemoneh Esrei. Tefillas HaDerech. We plead with the Kodesh Baruch Hu to save us and to guard us. V'harevenu Hashem Elokeinu is also a Bakosha. So we have Shevach, Hoidoya, Bakosha. Bakosha, we do find a sugya. Tanas Beis Omed Aleph. Safri. Olav de B'chalavavchem. Eiz avodah shelav zibud tefilo. But Shevach and Hoidoya, we don't find a sugya in Shas. So the Rambam says, Liskoir es haboirei tomid, uliyira oisoi. That is Shevach v'Hoidoya. I think Shevach v'Hoidoya are so fundamental that it's a milsa de pshita. Keshemesh betzorayim, kebeisa bekutchem. It's not even a question. Why? How do we know? That's Tachlis Abriya. That's why we're here. The Novi Yeshayahu Perek Mem Gimel says, Amzu yutzarti li tihilosi yisaperu. The Radak on the spot writes, Kedei shetihilosi yisaperu. That's why we're here. That's the Tachlis of Klal Yisrael. And another opportunity, I explained why are we all called Yehudim. Yehuda was one out of 12 tribes. Why are we all called Yehudim? The Koyanim, the Leviim, Shevet Levi, everybody is a Yehudi. Because the name Yehuda is all about thanks and gratitude. Hapam oide es Hashem. And that is the tachlis of Klal Yisrael. That's why we're here. That's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose us out of all the other peoples and nations. And the Ramban Sof Parshas Boy writes, Tachlas ha-yetzira harashoyne ve'ein la'elyon chayfetz betachtoinem ki im sheyeda ha'odom v'yodele Eloikov shebaroi. So the emphasis of the Ramban is on Hoidoya. The emphasis of Yeshayahu Hanovi is on Shevach, Tirosi Yesaperu. But these are fundamentals. That is the Tachlis of Klal Yisrael and the Tachlis Abriya. You have to be a Ramban to have the courage and the authority to write. Tachlis hayetzira harashoyne ve'ein la'elyon chayfetz betachtoinim ki im. Every time I quote these words, I'm stirred. That is all it's about. And therefore, Chazal don't need to ask, why do we say Birchas Shevach v'Hoidoya? Because that's why we're here. That's our destiny, that's our shlichus, that's our mission. Tilosi yisaperu. Ein le'elyon chayfetz betachtoinim ki im sheyeda ha'odam v'yodele Eloikov shebaroi. So that is fundamentally about Birchas Shevach v'Hoidoya. Let's get back to Shehechiyanu. So the Gemara in Eruvin says there are two different dinim. Shehechiyanu on Chagam and Mitzvahs. Chayva. Pri Chodosh, Beged Chodosh, Rishus. Is it Rishus? Mamish Rishus? Big machlokes. Sefer Hu Eshkoil, Birchas Hoidoya Siman Chav Gimel, writes, Pri Chodosh, Beged Chodosh, Chayva Levorech, not a Rishus. When I quote the Sefer Eshkol, I just need to mention there's some controversy regarding Sefer Eshkol, whether it is authentic or not. It was first printed about some more than 200 years ago by one of the great Gedolim of that era with a Peresh Nachal Eshkol. He was a tzaddik. He wasn't involved in any way in forging a manuscript, a Ksav Yad. But there's questions whether it is an authentic manuscript. He was definitely innocent, but so we didn't know the final verdict, but somewhat of a question. But anyway, Sefer Eshkoil, Chayva, Tshuvas Chasam Sofer Chaim Siman Nun Hey seems to lean that it's a Chayva Mamish. And when the Gemara in Eruvin says Rishus, all the Gemara means to say is, it's a Rishus because you don't need to buy a new suit. And you don't need to eat new fruit. That's why it's a rishus. It's voluntary. But if you did eat new fruit or buy a new suit, you have a chiyuv, an obligation to say the bracha. That is contrary to Tshuvas HaRashba, Chelek Aleph Reish Mem Hey, and once again Reish Nun, and the Ramo, and the Shulchan Aruch. All the major poskim say no. There is a difference in the essence of the brachos. Not only in the essence of what are you saying the bracha about? It's a different type of bracha. Yomim Tovim, Sholosh Regalim, Mitzvahs is a chayva, is an obligation. Pri Chodesh, Beged Chodesh is voluntary, is a rishus. The Netziv has a gewaldige chiddush, brachas Lamed Zayin. The Netziv generally is a chadshin in halacha. The Netziv differentiates between Roya Pri Chodesh, Roya Beged Chodesh, which is rishus. Bono Bayis Chodesh is a chiyuv. It's your home. You derive direct pleasure and joy and benefit. That's different. But all the Rishonim and major poskim say Bayis Chodesh, Ishu Chadasha, Beged Chodesh, Pri Chodesh, all the same din. And those are rishus. However, Reish Chov Gimel, Sif Aleph, when the Mechaber says Mishiel Ishtonekei v'Yavorach Shehechiyanu, and the Ramah writes Yesh lahokel, because it's only a brochas rishus, v'noagim lahokel b'brochas elu. And the Mughal Rom Sif Kut Zayin, the Mishnah Berurah on the spot, and this Mishnah Berurah is three different places. Reish Chov Gimel, Reish Chav Hey, Sif Kut Tes, I think, Reish Yutes Bialocha Sif Daled. Mishnah Berurah writes, even though it's a rishus, ein levatel, of course it's a mitzvah. You don't get punished if you don't say Shehechiyanu. That's what Chazal mean when they say it's a rishus. But you get reward if you do say, And ein levatel. Of course, you should say this bracha. You should say the Shehechiyanu on Pesach Chodoshim and on Beged Chodosh. Actually, the Ramon Darka Moshe says that. So why does the Ramon Reish Chov Gimel write it's a Reshus? And not in Reish Chov Hey. Reish Chov Hey is the real siman about Shehechiyanu. Pri Chodesh, Beged Chodesh, Roya Chaveiro Lachesh Loishim Yoim. That's where all the halachas of Shehechiyanu are. Reish Chov Gimel is just Mishialdo Ishto Nekeva. That's why my feeling would be, regarding the other Birchas Shehechiyanu, Kvar Kosav Adarka Moshe She'ein Levatel. It is only that specific bracha, Yol Ishto Nekeva, that the Ramo says one should be makel, you don't say the bracha. And when the Ramo says Nagu lahokal b'brocha seilo, he says that with critique, with criticism, not that that's right. And that was the understanding of the Mogen Avraham and the Mishnah Brura. So anyway, ein levatel bechino. Some achroina maintain shaviu alei choiva. I think a few weeks ago I dedicated one of the weekly shiurim to shaviu alei choiva. And I brought about 15 sources. Memerchavei Hashas, Shulchan Aruch, more than 15. Won't go over it, but some achronim say, even though Shehechiyanu on a new fruit, a new suit, Kelim Chadoshim, fundamentally, by Chazal's ruling, is only Reshus, Kiblu Alei Choiva, and it has transformed to a Choiva. Mogen Geboirem Reish Chof Hei. Mogen Geboirem is one of the Choshev Achronim quoted by the Mishnah Brura constantly. And I just need to share this because I don't think everybody knows. Who is the Mogen Geboirem? Two youngsters, giants, brothers-in-law. Rabbi Yosef Shol Natan's son, ultimately to become the B'Shoel HaMeshav, and his brother-in-law, who was 4 years older than him, Rav Motchazev Ettinger. And when the Mogen Geboirem was published, Rabbi Yosef Shol Natan's son was 19 years old. Unbelievable. His older brother-in-law was 23. And it wasn't the first sefer they published together. It was number 2. First sefer of Yosef Shol was 17, right after his wedding. Unbelievable. So take a 19-year-old yeshiva boy, Efroyach Shaloi Niftachu Einav. And when Rabbi Yosef Shol was 19, published a sefer Mogen Geboirem, and it's considered one of the Choshev Achronim, quoted La'orko Ve'La'rochbo by the Mishnah Brura. Mogen Geboirem Reish Chof Hei argues, Kibro Alei HaChoiva. The same we find in Chuvas Ksav Soifes Siman Chof Hei. So anyway, yes, we should say this bracha. My Rebbe, Kloisenberger Rebbe Zechet Tzadik V'Kodesh Lovrocha, I assume that is the Mesodes from the Divrei Chaim. In Sanz, they don't say a Shehechiyanu on Peres Chodoshim and on Beged Chodosh. Based on the Ramo, it's a Reshus. Yesh Lahakel. But that is not the opinion of the majority of Achronim, including the Mishnah Brura. One should say. Could one say Shehechiyanu even on different things that we do not find in Gemara, Rambam, Shulchan Aruch? We do find specific halachas. Roya Chaveiro Lachesh Loishim Yom. Pri Chodesh, Beged Chodesh, when a person has a baby. Could he say about anything that brings him joy and happiness? Or do we find a common denominator at Tzad HaShova between those that we do find in Shulchan Aruch? So what is the common denominator that Tzad HaShova B'Chei Shehechiyanu? I think first of all it needs to be something new. Peres Chodoshim. Beged Chodesh, a new baby. It is considered as if a new experience, time has passed. I think the other point would be when by seeing you derive joy. There are things make you happy just to see them. A new baby. A person you dearly love and you haven't seen him for a while. Beged Chodosh, Peres Chodoshim, only if it's yours. You bought this, and you're already happy that you will enjoy. I don't think people are very happy to see a vaccine. It's not a very beautiful thing to see. It's not like a beautiful fruit, a beautiful suit, person, a baby. I don't think it makes you especially happy to sit in a hospital room or in a clinic and see a little bottle of a vaccine. So, would one say Shehechiyanu when he gets the vaccine? It's not a purchase. It's not buying something that you will enjoy later. So, I don't think we have any source about saying a bracha on a vaccine. And this brings us to a more fundamental question. The fact that Shehechiyanu is a reshus, does that make it harsher or more lenient? If it's a reshus, does that mean we need to minimize or maximize? That's a big machloikus in achronim. Siman Tov Lamed Beis. You all remember, Tov Lamed Beis is not Hilchas Brochas, it's Hilchas Pesach, Biar Chometz, B'dikas Chometz. So some achronim, great poskim maintain, you got to make a Shehechiyanu on B'dikas Chometz. It's a mitzvah borazman azman. It's once a year. Why don't we say a Shehechiyanu? The Drisha and the Pri Chodosh both right. We do not find in any posik that we make a Shehechiyanu on B'dikas Chometz. However, it's a reshus anyway, so why not? It's a reshus anyway, so why not? The Drisha and the Pri Chodesh, two giants of the greatest poskim, argue, if it's berachas reshus, it's voluntary, so you could volunteer as much as you wish. So we don't find it. But even what we do find is not a chiyuv. A bracha that's a chiyuv, we need to clearly define what are the limits and the boundaries of this chiyuv. When is a person chayiv and when he's potter? And if he's potter, he can't make the bracha. But if it's anyway a voluntary basis, then make a bracha b'dikas chometz. We don't find. Maybe there is no chiyuv. So it's a berachas hareshus. But that goes against the vast majority of poskim based on Tshuvas HaRash, who I quoted before. Tshuvas HaRash, B'chelek Aleph, Reish Memhei, and Reish Nun. Darke Moshe, all the major poskim, no. The fact that Berachas Shehechiyanu as a reshus means you need to minimize, not maximize. You need to do your best to stay away, unless we have a clear source to say Berachas Shehechiyanu. Tshuvas Chasam Sofer Yoredei Reish Mem Zayin writes, Sofik Brochas Lahokal. But not every das yochid is a suffix. If according to the majority of poskim you say a brocha, then you say a brocha, even though there might be some poskim that question the need to say the brocha. Berachas Shehechiyanu is different, is an exception, because it's a reshus. And therefore we should be machmer. Even if there's a das yochid that you don't say a brocha, you don't say the brocha. And the Chassam Sofer follows the mainstream of poskim. The fact that there is a reshus means you need to stay away. And you don't say this bracha unless it is clear that you should. And that is the opinion of most poskim, which brings us to another discussion. B'chlal do we say on Berachas Shehechiyanu, Sabal, Sofek Brachas Lahokal. Everyone quotes the Bach and Siman Chov Tes. The Bach says by Berachas Shehechiyanu, we don't say Sofek Brachas Lahokal. So the rationale of the Bach is not because reshus. Different knetch, a different touch. The Bach says, it's all about Simchas Halev. I am happy with a Sofek bracha, with a Sofek mitzvah. So why can't they say Shehechiyanu? You don't say Shehechiyanu on the mitzvah. It's not like Berachas HaMitzvah. If you didn't do a mitzvah, then it's a bracha of a Torah. No. Shehechiyanu is about Simchas HaMitzvah. So even a Sofek mitzvah brings you simcha. That would not be a bracha of a Torah. And therefore we don't say Sofek brachas lahokal. Tzlach brachas siman samach supports the Bach. So do we find in Eliyahu Rabbi Simachov Beis. But, however, I don't think that's halacha psuka. Some achronim realize that there's a stira in Bach, going back to Tov Lamed Beis, B'dikas Chometz. Regarding B'dikas Chometz, the Bach says, you don't say a bracha because Sofek bracha is local. And that contradicts the Bach in Semachov Tes, that regarding Shehechiyanu, you don't say Sofek bracha is local. 2 against 1. Tshuvas Abach Simen Kuf Lamed Beis. Once again, Sofek bracha is local if you have a Sofek in Shehechiyanu. So 2 against 1. Toiva Mashnayim in Echad. That's a posuk. When we closely examine and analyze the 3 sources of the Bach, to me it seems clear the Bach in Semachov Tes just writes it b'derech Kiddush. It's not a psak. Tshuvas Abach. He once again says that same Chidush. Maybe by Shehechiyanu we wouldn't say Sofek Brochas Lahakal, but he retracts. And he says, La Halacha Yesh Lahachmir. And therefore, when we have a Sofek about Berchas Shehechiyanu, we should not say. And that is the reason yesterday when I went to Shaarei Tzedek Hospital and I got this vaccination, I did not say a Shehechiyanu, nor a Toiva Ametiv, nor a Machaya Mesim. But what I did say is a tefillah, which many people aren't aware of, but it's brought in all the poskim. What I did say is, Yerotzim al-Fonechu Hashem Elokeinu v'Elokeu v'Seinu, Sheyeheli Eisek Ze L'Refuah, Ki Roife Chinom Ato. And I said the nusach that we find in Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, there are slight differences in different poskim. That is the nusach I said, and that is what you should say. Not only when vaccinating, any medical procedure. You're taking medicine, Yerotzim. Rabbeinu Yonah writes on the posuk, B'chod rochecho deyehu v'hu yashor chesecho. A person should be accustomed to turn to HaKadosh Baruch Hu on a constant basis. Whatever he needs, whatever he does. B'chol drochecho deyehu v'hu yashor chesecho. Especially when we're dealing with medicine. When we're dealing with refuahs, we need so much siyata d'shmaya. So last week we discussed the vaccine. Yeah, I don't think it's any real level of danger. It's a safe vaccine. B'siyata d'shmaya. But, as everything in medicine, things could go wrong. And sometimes they do go wrong. So you turn to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yerotzim al-Fonechu Hashem Elokeinu v'Elokeu v'Seinu, Sheyeheli Eisek Ze L'Refuah, Ki Roife Chinom Ato. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a Roife Chinom, and we're all at His mercy. So once again, HaKadosh Baruch Hu should safeguard all of us. Those that take the vaccine, and I hope everybody does. Those that will choose not to take, they should be well as well. They are precious, they're wonderful Eden. They might be mistaken, but they're still very dear. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu should safeguard everyone. We only hear Pseudos Toivis Yeshuas V'Nechomis. So this week's Parsha has another climax. We started with a meeting of Yaakov and Yosef, father and son. But then Yosef introduces Yaakov Avinu to Paroi. And Paroi asks, Kama Yemei Shnei Chayach. Yaakov responds, and I think never in history did a person give such a complicated, long, convoluted response to such a simple question. What is Paroi asking? How old are you, mister? What does Yaakov say? Yemei megurai shloshim u'ma'as shana. Ma'at v'roam hayu yemei shnei chayai. V'lo hesigu yemei shnei chayai avoisei b'yemei megurim. He didn't ask, how do you do? How was your life? Tell me about yourself. He asked, how old are you? What is Yaakov saying? Lanias daiti, and I said this many, many years ago when it's printed in Minchas Osher ala Torah Sichos. I think it's Torah Semes. There is not one spare word in Yaakov Avinu's response. Yaakov Avinu hears a question, Kami yamei shnei chayecha. He's taken aback. He's frightened. B'mokem she'ata moitze gedolos neshama ata moitze in vasenosam. Yaakov HaTzadik. That's the way the Rambam calls Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov HaTzadik. Look at the very vast halacha in the Rambam in Hilchos Chirus. Sof Hilchos Chirus. Yaakov HaTzadik is an anvasan. He's the most humble person. Kutointi makol hachasodim. Yaakov shudders. He wants to know about Chaim, but Rishoim b'chayein kruyim mesim. Tzadikim b'misosam kruyim Chaim. Once a month we try to define Chaim. What is life? And that is in Berchos HaChodesh, Shabbos Mevorchim. Chaim sheyesh b'am mavis tov Yerushalayim. Chaim sheyesh b'am Yerushalayim v'yiras chet. Chaim sheyesh b'am busho ochlimo. So Yaakov says, what do I say now? What do I say now? How much life did I have? True life, real life. Chaim shel Torah. So Yaakov says, Yemei Magurai, Shloshim Amashona. I've been around. I've been roaming the face of earth. I've been around. I've been here 130 years. But if you want to know about Chaim, Ma'at v'roam hayu yemei shnei chayai, v'lo yesigu yemei shnei chayai avoisai b'yemei megurayim. So Yaakov says, by my great father and grandfather, there were giants, there were tzaddikim. Every day in their lives was Chaim, was Yemei Chaim, Avraham Zokim Bobi Yomim. We spoke about the Pasuk Avraham Zokim Bobi Yomim. The Zohar says, every day, each and every day testified before HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How Avraham made the most of every day, how he took advantage of every day, how he utilized every day to Abotzas Torah, to Kiddush Shem Shemayim. So Yaakov says, my great parents, my father and great father, there was a total correlation between Yemei Migureim and Yemei Chayeihem. But by me, the two parted. Shloshim v'mashon hayu Yemei Migurai, Ma'at v'roam hayu Yemei Shnei Chayai, v'lo yesigu Yemei Shnei Chayei, Avoisai b'yemei migureim. Did Parai understand what Yaakov said? I could only guess not. But obviously he didn't care too much because he didn't ask for an explanation. So what we take away from Yaakov Avinu is, not every day you're around is really a day of life, of Chaim. And we need to try to correlate Shnei Migureinu im Yemei Chayenu. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes a point in his Torah to let us know. That is what Yaakov Avinu said, because he was such a tzaddik and such an anav. But it's not true. Very first posuk in Parshas V'yechi that we will read next week. V'yechi Yaakov b'yeretz Mitzrayim shvayis shana. V'yehi Yemei Yaakov shnei chayav. Once again we find dual language, double language. V'yehi Yemei Yaakov shnei chayav sheva shonim v'arba'am u'ma'as shana. Ka'Avraham kach Yitzchak kach Yaakov. Every day of Yaakov's life, like Yitzchak and like Avraham, bo b'yomim. Every day of his existence, every day he breathed and walked the land was Chaim. V'yehi yemei Yaakov shnei chayav sheva shonim v'arba'am u'ma'as shana. So each and every one of us has to realize that life is a mission and we're here to serve. And at the end of the road, the Beis Din Shalamala, and the day of judgment, yes, every day will shine before our eyes. Lahavdil elef alfei avdolos, like a video screen. And we will go back b'menheret hazman, in the tunnel of time, and each day will stand and testify. How did we spend this day? Did you make anyone happy this day? I taught my children since they were infants. Before you go to sleep every night, you need to ask yourself, did I bring a smile on someone's face today? Did I make someone happy today? Did I teach Torah today? Was I Mekadesh Shem Shemayim today? So we can only hope that Yemei Migurenu and Yemei Chayenu should somewhat coincide. They should somewhat be correlated. So Shakadosh Baruch Hu Yazor, L'man Kvod Shemoi, we should be Zocher HaKadosh Shem Shemayim, L'Hagdil Torah L'Adira, L'Harbe Shalom Ba'olam, Talmidei Chacham Ma'am Shalom B'Yolim, to enhance Ava V'Achva V'Shalom V'Reyes. And we should be Zocher B'Korah B'Yameinu, to be as Moshiach Tzedkeinu and Binyan Beis HaMikdash B'Mheiro V'Yomeinu. Amen.